Hey, Ryan with Premier Seal Coating here, and I am making this video to try to help some of you with a project that maybe you have coming up. Maybe you're building a backyard basketball, pickleball, tennis, shuffleboard, a backyard game court, a sport court. How should you go about planning this? How much can you expect it to cost? Here's a couple, just a simple need to knows if you're starting this process that might help you down the line not have issues. One is, what should you use for your pad? What is the most common base that people use, and what's the most common base that people think they should use? Because those are actually two different things. And it has a lot to do with where you are geographically, in my opinion. So, not to draw out the answer to the question, but asphalt is what you should be using for a pad every time. And there are reasons why that is. Sometimes people think concrete is the better solution, because the finish is, more consistent. They think that over time it will hold up to cracking better than, let's say, asphalt would. But really, at the end of the day, concrete will crack just as much as asphalt will, and really, if you're building a game court and you're planning on using like a liquid coating, an acrylic coating or a polyurethane coating or something along those lines, you want it to be asphalt. If you're going to use a tile method like VersaCord or something like that, then concrete's fine. I would say if you're going to use a tile system, then you should use concrete. If you're going to use a liquid system, then you should go with asphalt. And the reason for that is asphalt is a better surface for the product to bond to. Concrete is very finicky, and there are a lot of different things that can make concrete fail over time, from just a bad mix to hydrostatic pressure causing it to bubble and delaminate. There are just so many different variables that just asphalt doesn't have, and it, depending on where you are, it could cost a little bit more or it could cost a little bit less. So I always try to push customers who haven't done it yet or haven't put the pad in yet to use asphalt versus concrete. Now, if somebody calls me, which has happened 100 times, and said, I have a concrete court, how do I go about getting it coated? I just tell them, listen, it's too late. You should use a tile system. It is a little bit more money. You're talking like, maybe $8 a foot installed versus, $1.50 to $2 a square foot for putting it down with the coating. But at that point, there's really not much you can do. And here, I'm going to show you some pictures of what happens when you try to coat concrete. These pictures are from a job that we did. We used muriatic acid to etch the court and clean it. It had almost a very smooth, like a polished finish on it. So we should have maybe grinded it down some, but you shouldn't really have to do that. The acid should work enough. And as you can see from these pictures, it just peeled right off. And I really have not had any good experiences using a coated latex product in an outdoor situation. Indoors is completely different. It has to do with the way that the water reacts with the material, and the way that the base itself handles the water and how it gets rid of it. So concrete, it tends to hydrostatic pressure pushing up through the block or through the slab. Next thing you know, you have bubbles that kind of look like this. So I tell people again, if you're about to make this decision from the scratch, make sure the pad is asphalt. Unless you want to go with a tile system, then go with concrete. With regards to the cracking issue, listen, this is the earth. You know, you're naive to think that the earth's never going to move. I have seen brand new indoor facilities with concrete that have cracked within 2 or 3 days of the slab being poured, and then I've seen, you know, slabs not crack at all. So, you know, same thing with asphalt. If a good tennis court has or basketball court has been put in, the base has been done properly, the asphalt has been laid in 2 separate poles, as we call it, then your chances of cracking for a while are very, very thin, because you're not putting the weight of it, you're not putting the weight of, like, let's say a car or something like that on it. So, you know, that tends to, if that's something that's holding you up, don't even worry about it, okay? And again, it may take more coats of material to achieve that smooth look and get rid of the porous look of asphalt, but at the end of the day, it's going to look exactly like it would if it was a smooth concrete slab, okay? So let's get that out of here. Asphalt's what you're going to make the pad out of, all right? Second is coatings. What can you use for coatings? Okay, there are a bunch of different types of coatings out there. There's Sportmaster, Laycold, Dynaflex, Action Pave, you know, Plexi Pave, Nova Court. You know, there are just tons of different products to use. My suggestion to you would be to use whatever product your contractor is comfortable using. The last thing your contractor wants you to do is go online, you know, see some video or somebody's advertisement and get all jacked up on that material, and then you go to your contractor and say, well, I really want you to use this material, and your contractor's like, well, I've never used that material before, I don't know how, you know, it reacts to the heat, I'm not sure of how the mixing procedure is. Like, you know, let your contractor use whatever he's comfortable using. All right, so he's not going to try to use something that's not good. He doesn't want you to have to call him back with issues down the road, right? Chances are, if he's using this product, he's had success with it. Unless he's like, this is his first time, then, you know, what does he know? But for coatings, I would say leave it up to your contractor. Let your contractor handle that. As far as tile goes, the same, you know, company that puts tiles in may not be the same company that does acrylic coating. In my experience, you do one or the other. Not that you can't find one in your area that can do both, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, when it comes down to it, they may have a company that they work with. You can call a coatings guy and say, hey, I'm looking for, you know, like a tile system, and he'll say, well, I know a guy, you know, because he throws him work and that guy throws him work. So, you know, that's how that goes. And then what else is there? You know, fencing. What do you do for fencing? Well, that's unique to the situation that you're in. Where's your court going to be put? Obviously, the pad is, you know, if it's not level when it's put in, it will be leveled by the company who's putting the pad in. But you always want to go with a bigger fence on the backside. If you're building a basketball court, you want to go with, you know, a bigger fence on the backside, because when they shoot and miss, a 4-foot fence isn't stopping shit. Okay, the ball's going to bounce right over the fence. They're going to have to go outside the fence to get it every time. And what's going to happen is they're not going to walk around to the gate. They're just going to jump the fence right there, and then you put fatigue on the fence. Now your fence starts to show wear. So, in my opinion, 8 to 10 foot on the backside of a basketball court. 4 feet is fine on the sides. Gates can be done at your preference. Same thing with lighting. If you want to put lighting in, that can also be done, you know, at your preference. There's a million options to go with there. And And that's, you know, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's not something that really needs to be overthought. You know, you can kind of build and design it however you like, but once you, let's say you do use concrete and you're going to put a tile system in, that needs to sit for at least 30 days, you know, and cure before you have people coming in and putting shit on top of it. Same thing with coatings. If you're using coatings, I'd say wait a little bit longer than that. Asphalt needs 60 days to cure once it goes in before you can put an acrylic coating on it, and that is because what winds up happening is the oils haven't released themselves from the asphalt yet, and this is a water-based product, so it causes a problem with, you know, it adhering properly. Also, your lighter colors can absorb some of the blackness from the asphalt, so which gives it, you know, like your whites look brown, your yellows look brown, your oranges look brown. So you know, really give it the time. I know you're excited, you're trying to get this done, but that's something that you want to wait for. Also, the hoop or the posts installing, you know, it depends on who you talk to. Old school tennis guys will tell you to put your posts in before you put your pad in. And on concrete, yes. On asphalt, I say no. They'll probably say yes. But that's because I think 20, 30 years ago, you know, to get those posts in the ground, you used to have to cut this giant square out of the ground, excavate out like a, you know, a 6x6 area, and then that creates like a fail point, okay, which you're always going to have to address. So what we do nowadays is we use a coring machine. We put the pad in first because it's easier for the paver to run straight passes with the paver. Come back and forth, straight passes. If he has to stop and lift up to go over a post that, you got to remember, this thing's sticking out of the ground at 6 inches. It's not almost flush because it needs those layers of asphalt. So at the time, it's 6 inches. He's got to pick that paver up, put it over, drop it, and then try to get everything around it to smoothen out and look right. So, and that's tough. You want him to pull full consistent passes, though it's the best way to do it, so you don't wind up with puddles. And then after we come in with this coring machine, and we core out a circle, we dig it out, we hone it out at the bottom like an elephant foot, so it goes out like this. And that's another thing that used to happen with tennis and tennis courts and even basketball hoops back in the day. People would just dig a hole and then throw concrete in the hole, and then frost heaves get in there, it freezes, it pushes it up, and then, you know, you got fucking then you got problems, okay? So what they do now is they take the housing or the footing and they bell house the bottom, or they elephant foot it. And what that does is after it gets put back in and packed, it stops it. It's almost like anchors on the side to stop it from being able to lean, you know. Most of your tennis courts, you go on the tennis court and it's leaning like the fence, I mean the net is leaning like this, pulling in on the inside. And that's caused by people not taking the nets down through the winter, and that tension being on there through the freeze and thaw cycle, and, you know, and that loosens things up. So, you know, we recommend putting in the posts and the hoop after. Also, you want to put it in after because it's a lot easier to center the basketball hoop than it is to center the pad. So once the guy comes in and puts his pad in, it's easier for you just to dig the hole in the center and get everything lined up center than it is for you to put that hoop in, and now they have to try to center the pad and square it off of that hoop, if you follow what I'm saying. So let's see. As far as lines go, you know, multiple game courts, you know, each color or each set of lines should be a different color. You know, if we're doing a tennis court with pickleball lines, we usually do the tennis white and the pickleball light blue. Or if we're doing a basketball court or a tennis court with a tennis court with basketball lines on it, we'll do the tennis court white and the basketball lines might be gray or black or something. So that just helps with it not getting too confusing on the eyes. You know, sometimes people will say, hey, give me I want tennis, and then, you know, I want basketball on this side, and then I want pickleball on this side, and then I want, you know, shuffleboard like over here. And it's like, listen, that would look cool, but it gets very busy very quick. And the last thing you want to do is have this thing where you're looking at it and you're going, Jesus, I have a headache looking at it, you know? So we have options for multi-game courts to go with minimal lines, you know, where let's say you're sharing a tennis court with a basketball hoop, basketball half court, in that situation, because some of where the lines meet up are very close to the tennis lines themselves. So the free throw line on a standard court build, that hoop would be 6 inches, or the basketball lines would be 6 inches off the tennis line at the free throw, which can get confusing if you have 2 sets of white lines there. So what we do is we'll use minimal lines. So instead of it being the whole key, we might just have the 3-point arc with 1 solid line for the free throw, or the free throw. So there are options, but that's pretty much it. Once the court is done, it can be played on pretty much immediately. I would say that you want to do a yearly maintenance on it, which is make sure you're taking anything down that needs to be taken down, like net posts or, you know, anything that's freestanding on there, flower pots, benches, get that stuff off of there for the winter. Maybe every couple of years do a soft wash on it. You know, you don't want to go too crazy with a power washer because it'll streak. This material is loaded with sand, so if you get on there with a power washer and you're inconsistent in any way whatsoever, you're going to have lines like crazy. So again, that would be something I would leave up to your contractor, the guy putting it in for you. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's you know, what could you expect to pay? Well, it all depends on your area. You know, Google's a pretty good indicator of what you can expect to pay for prices in your area. So what I would tell you is to, you know, figure out how big you want your pad to be and figure out the square footage of that, and ask Google, you know, how much asphalt is per square foot in your area. And it will give you a pretty good idea. And you can multiply that by how many square feet you're wanting, and that will give you a rough cost of what you could expect to pay for the pad. Same thing for concrete. I could shoot numbers out, but those would just be numbers that are specific to, you know, to my area. So, and the same thing with fencing. You know, fencing is going to be specific to your area. It's specific to whatever the price of steel is at that time. And, you know, your coatings, well, that's a different story. Basketball courts, depending on design and how porous the asphalt is, how many coats of resurfacer it needs, you know, they could run anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. You know, tennis courts could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Pickleball courts anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000. And that's just for the color. That doesn't include the pad, it doesn't include the fence. You know, to be realistic, if you're thinking of building a backyard basketball court, all in, you know, especially with lights and a fence, or one light and a fence, you know, it could easily cost anywhere from 10 to 30, it could cost anywhere from 20 to 30 grand, you know. I mean, we just did one locally here for someone during COVID. It was a half court. Here is a picture of it. And, you know, this was built on a hill, so it needed some site work. It needed a little retaining wall put in. It needed, you know, backfill. The hoop needed to be put in. But, you know, this court cost them between $25,000 and $30,000. So, you know, it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. Tennis courts can be anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000. Again, fencing is going to be a huge line item in that, and so is the pad itself. But, you know, if you have any questions, or if you think that there's something that maybe I forgot, which I'm sure there is, and you want, you know, if you have a question, you want it answered, I'm pretty good with getting back to people on stuff like this. Yeah, I'd like to help you. So let me know. Thanks.